The Education Law Center was founded in Newark, New Jersey in 1973 by Professor Paul Trachtenberg of Rutgers Law School with a startup grant from the Ford Foundation.
I started the Education Law Center because I developed a great passion for using law, education law in particular, to advance the interests of children, and especially low-income children of color who need education more than most, and we're not getting it.
Education Law Center has been successful for 50 amazing years because it combines advocacy and litigation. ELC recognizes that to make significant and lasting change in New Jersey, you need both legal rulings that support the work and also legislative progress. And ELC has been particularly effective at moving on both tracks.
I think what made the organization successful is that it had a cause that demanded attention, and the Education Law Center was there. It was the organization that picked up this cause and ran with it and never let go.
We are a justice-centered union. It is important that NJA work alongside the ELC because they're a resource and they can help you in the work you're doing.
I believe the work of ELC was and is still crucially important because poor children need a strong advocate, and an advocate that knows and can use law seems essential.
I feel great after 50 years with ELC. I think ELC has done a fantastic job with the programs that have come forward to help the people in these 31 districts.
I feel very proud. I believe ELC has done an outstanding job. Hope it continues for many, many years to come because it's impactful on education, on urban education. And urban students deserve an equal opportunity in education as the suburban districts do.
Those lawyers at the Education Law Center, they're creme de la creme. And thank God they're in civil rights. Their focus, their ability to secure sound rulings in court and to press the case for education equity.
ELC understands winning these court cases is not enough, that you need to win in the court of public opinion, that you need to win essentially political campaigns to change policy.
The Education Law Center took on the task of making sure that school finance or school finances were better for the poorer districts, just as they were good for the richer districts. That meant millions of more dollars came into the coffers of places like Newark and East Orange, Camden, Trenton, that wouldn't have come before because the tax base just wasn't large enough, wasn't secure enough.
When I talk with colleagues in other states, they're amazed at the level of equitable financing for public schools in New Jersey. But none of this came about by accident. It happened because of the long-standing work of Education Law Center to push for fair funding for all kids in New Jersey. And they did this through countless lawsuits and countless rounds of state budget negotiations.
School funding, right? That's a huge issue. It's going to remain a huge issue, I think, for decades and decades and decades to come. There is always that push and pull as to where the funding is going to go. And this is the place where, can't we all agree, we've got to continue to do this work, and that's going to mean fights sometimes. And that's where it means legal cases sometimes. And that's where it means Education Law Center.
It just makes, I think, the Education Law Center just the leaders in the nation. Quite frankly, I don't know anybody, any firm, any collection of attorneys, any interest is more versed and more practiced and experienced, particularly legally, on this issue of public funds for public schools than the Education Law Center.
We have to thank ELC for all the work it's done to make sure that the resources available for school districts do not depend on the wealth of the people who live there alone.
I think the state of New Jersey has come to terms with the Education Law Center's goals and realized they're correct, they're appropriate. The battle now is to make sure that that work gets finished, that the segregation in the urban school districts is ended, and that the quality of funding and resources for those school districts continues to be what it should be.
In 1979, Marilyn Morehouser was hired as ELC's executive director, and in 1981, she filed the landmark Abbott v. Burke case on behalf of children attending poor urban schools in New Jersey.
The big contribution that stands out in my mind is, of course, the Abbott case. That was the most important set of cases that the organization brought.
ELC was a tremendous advocate for the Abbott districts, the SDA districts. They were a constant ally of ours, assisting us, asking what our needs were, getting involved in looking at the district's long-range plans.
Pre and post Abbott, I've been in the district 43 years, seen a great deal of improvement because of the Abbott ruling and the support of the ELC Center. Now we have beautiful facilities. There's plenty of curriculum, there's plenty of support. There are bilingual teachers. I'm working with bilingual students. So the impact itself has been tremendous.
I think the Abbott decision speaks for itself, right? And the work of the Education Law Center there was tremendous. Those dollars are flowing because of the Education Law Center.
Some years later, the New York Times said that Abbott versus Burke was the second most important decision ever rendered in the United States in the field of education, second only to Brown against Board of Education.
I think the most important policy of ELC was beginning with the early childhood program. New Jersey is known as a top district nationwide as far as education is concerned with early childhood. The early childhood program that was educating the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds was a great impact on education.
The Education Law Center's influence on preschool has been widespread. In New Jersey, it's obvious. We are now working on universal preschool for the entire state because we have the highest quality preschool program and we can see the results and the impact on children. The rest of the country and the rest of the world has been watching that.
After the initial decision, the Education Law Center came back and asked for free preschool. And our court ordered free preschool for every 3 and 4-year-old in the 28 Abbott school districts. A landmark decision, a historic decision.
Take it as building a house. If you build a house on sand, it will crumble. If you build a solid foundation in early childhood, you can build upon that foundation and your students will succeed.
Initially, the Education Law Center was a New Jersey-based entity whose main focus was on New Jersey and the large and formidable task of doing something about New Jersey's public school system. But I think more recently it's gone national in ways that are important, and I suspect those will be continuing into the future.
ELC's impact has been at the state level because that's where a lot of the action is around school finance reform. But they've built a national presence by being engaged with all of the other legal theorists and activists and advocates around how to bring these cases, around how to think about the theories that will work in the courts, how to, for example, articulate the standards in the state and what the legal framework needs to be to allow students to meet the standards. And that has had national impact.
This is a model for other states, and this research is really important. We work across the country with states on their policies, and we need a model like New Jersey to point to say it is doable, and it must be done if you want to have longitudinal results. If you want to impact children's lives, you have to do it at this level of standard. And if it wasn't for the Education Law Center pushing for that with the court and going back to court and going back to court to make sure the state got it right, we wouldn't have that model, and children wouldn't be benefiting not only in this state, but throughout the nation.
In 1996, David Sierra took over as ELC's executive director. Over the ensuing years, David and the ELC staff used litigation, advocacy, research, and communications to fight for education equity and racial justice for public school children as ELC grew in statewide and national prominence.
David is tenacious. He's like a bulldog. Once he clamps down, he won't let go. That kind of personality is what you need to be a good trial lawyer, is what you need to be a good advocate for children.
Cost-benefit analysis studies that have been done of intensive preschool programs following inner-city kids over 20, 30 years that show enormous cost savings to society because of the head start, the boost that kids got from intensive preschool. Now, it has to be intensive.
As Education Law Center's incoming executive director, I'm really looking forward to working with this amazing staff, being part of a great organization that is at the forefront of education rights, civil rights, and equity for public schools, public school children. And I think it's an amazing place that does not only legal work and litigation, but also advocacy and policy work and also research, which are such important components to work together to address some of the hardest problems that we're facing in public education today.
Bob Kim is stepping up as the head of ELC, and he is an equity warrior. He is very engaged, very vigorous in his both behavior and his concerns.
It's really a pleasure and an honor to be in this role, and I really look forward to what the future is going to bring.